Raghunandan Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Satyar Sthita Sisiman His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki. Nanda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandayam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavani Ishmare Visubhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namanena Shesha Kleshana Shaya Paramananda Daine Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nidinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharare Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschitade Shatare Namaste Jivananda Dasaya Vanacharane Prabhupada Vallabhaya Srinivasila Vinodine Agyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtachapaditatanam Jnana Guru Tayochitarine Chakshashe Namaha Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanoga Varayate. So today is the auspicious holy appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I feel very, very unqualified to speak about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I'd love to give Bhagavatam class, although I'm not qualified to do that either. But giving these appearance classes is a different thing. Because you have to glorify the Vaishnavas, which is always requiring Krishna's empowerment. So I ask all of your blessings to be able to speak about Bhaktivinoda Thakur in a way that is pleasing and informative and inspiring. You know, we hear the same old biography so much, so we'll hear it again because it's all transcendental and joyful. Maybe we can add a few points of, you know, what inspires me and what inspires you. We can do some sharing. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared by the Western calendar, September 2nd, 1838. This is the Trayodasi in the month of Bhadra by the calendar of the moon. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared in the Nadia district. Of course, Nadia is the holy land where Lord Chaitanya appeared and many of his associates. So I've actually seen Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance place. You can see it on the train going from Krishnanagar in India, which is the big city near Mayapur. There's two cities near Mayapur. One of them is Navadvip, and one of them is Krishnanagar. But Krishnanagar is the business district. And if you need to get, you know, important things done, you go to Krishnanagar. That's I believe, the capital of the district of Nadia. And so on the train from Nadia to Shantipur, you can pass Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance place. Shantipur, of course, is the place of Advaita Acharya. So many of Lord Chaitanya's associates appeared in this Nadia district. And so one of Lord Chaitanya's names is Nadia Vihari. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared there, and he appeared in a rather wealthy family. And in that family, from what I've read, there was very little respect for Vaishnavas. It was not a Vaishnava family, although there were Vaishnavas in the past. His current birth at that time was not Vaishnava or Vishnu-centric, Krishna-centric, or Mahaprabhu-centric. What I gathered, they were, certain members of his family were like general Hindus, and others even leaned toward a Christian leaning. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's birth name was Ketarnath Datta. He was born in the Nadia district. He was apparently wealthy, but in time lost his wealth because he grew up in this place, and he was actually living in a compound or land that was from his maternal grandfather, and it was being given to them by the government somehow or another. But then at a certain age, the grandfather died and his brother died. He was actually going to a nice school there in Nadia. And at that time, the family fell into poverty. And so despite the poverty, because of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's immense intellect, he was, by the grace of one of his uncles, he was taken to Kolkata, where he studied English, and he advanced in English, of course, Bengali, Urdu, so many different languages. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's intellect is incomparable. And such a Vaishnava, such a saint, really is unheard of in the world. I think we in the Krishna conscious movement sometimes take for granted the level of people that have appeared in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was more than a saint, more than a sage. He was a great general and associate of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and one of the greatest Mahabhagavat devotees in the history of the world. And no doubt about that. In modern times, we hear of the great devotees are, of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, headed by Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis and the other 6 Goswamis. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is often called the 7th Goswami because of his immense contribution to the Vaishnava literatures and to the process of Krishna consciousness. Because at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, people were very fired up because Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his Shakti was imbued into the Krishna conscious movement at that time. So Mahaprabhu made millions of people devotees of Krishna. Wherever he went, anybody who saw Mahaprabhu became a devotee of Krishna. And then Mahaprabhu's chief disciples, Rupa and Sanatan, they took the teachings of Mahaprabhu and they basically took this personality who only wrote 8 verses. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only wrote 8 verses about the holy name, Shikshastakam. And other than that, his teachings were exemplary by example, and also, oral. He was speaking teachings to Rupa and Sanatan and to various devotees. And so Rupa and Sanatan had such an immense empowerment. And of course, they are manjaris from the spiritual world. Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari, and Sanatan Goswami is Lavanga Manjari. They both appeared in this world, and they took the teachings, the life, and the process of following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they gave us immense amounts of literatures to understand and to follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. And so those literatures are headed up by the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we know as the Nectar of Devotion, and the Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction, Sanatana Goswami gave us the Hari Bhakti Vilas, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and many other texts that were written by Rupa and Sanatana. Sanatana Goswami also, Rupa Goswami also gave us the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Ujjvala Mani, so many different texts. Lita Madhava, one of his plays. There's so many different texts. I can't remember so many immense texts of Rupa Goswami. Vidagya Madhava, his other play. And in this way, he elaborated and revealed the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and the proper mood by which to follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and attain those pastimes. So in due course, this disciplic succession had become broken, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Evam parampara praptam imam rajashovidu sakalena hamata yogo nasta parantapaha. That in due course, this chain of disciplic succession is lost. So after the appearance of Rupa and Sanatan, their primary disciple, Jiva Goswami, whose appearance was yesterday, I might speak about a little bit today. He became the preeminent Vaishnava at that time, follower of Lord Chaitanya. And so Jiva Goswami was responsible for training many of the Vaishnavacharyas that came after, such as Narottam Das, Srinivas, Shamananda Pandit. These three devotees especially were quintessential in spreading the Krishna consciousness movement in the time right after Mahaprabhu. And then, of course, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur appeared, and he was a great mystic, Vaishnava saint who wrote many texts and expanded our Vaishnava philosophy and gave us commentaries in the mood of Bhakti Rasa on the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Is a great contribution. And of course, his disciple, Baladev Vidyabhushan, who also wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada predominantly based his commentary on Bhagavad Gita on the commentary of Baladev Vidyabhushan, who also, Baladev Vidyabhushan also gave us the Govinda Bhashya, which is the Gaudiya Vaishnav commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Because at a certain point in history, the Govindaji temple in Jaipur, which is a very famous temple, and Govindaji is, of course, the deity of Rupa Goswami, who was moved to Jaipur due to Islamic attack. And at that time, the Madhva Vaishnavas were also worshipping Govindaji. And they had this idea that they wanted to remove Radharani from the altar. And this is, of course, for a Gaudiya Vaishnava, this is, unthinkable. You cannot remove Radha from Krishna. And so there was a debate. And the Madhva Acharya followers, they said that if you're not a bona fide disciplic succession because you don't have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And of course, our reply to that is we don't need a commentary on Vedanta Sutra because the Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra that was written by the author himself. But in any case, Baladev Vidyabhushan became empowered, and in 3 months he wrote an entire commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And so between the time of Baladev Vidyabhushan and our next Acharya Jagannath Das Babaji, there was a lot of degradation in terms of the Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava culture. Many of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became what we call apasampradayas, and meaning they weren't genuinely following Rupa and Sanatan. And so we see that they were sahajas and various groups that were, rather than strictly following the process of Krishna consciousness as prescribed by the Goswamis and by Lord Chaitanya, you have all kinds of people dressing up like gopis and doing various weird activities that basically gave Vaishnavism a bad name. And so at that time, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared, the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement was basically seen as a very strange group of religious followers, and it was sahaja. Sahaja means cheap. It wasn't taken as a very serious spiritual philosophy. And so, of course, in Bengal, the predominant worship is that of Durga Devi. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born into this world, and he was not particularly religious as a child, although he was very much into morality and into God and investigating and seeking God very vehemently. He wasn't particularly inclined toward the Vedic theology. So upon the death of his father, he studied English in Calcutta with his uncle. He advanced immensely in those activities of studying. And at that time, he began to lean toward Christianity because he was rejecting the monistic view, which was presented by Hindus at that time. And of course, that's how we grow up. Generally, when we think of Hindus, we think of this is a monistic type of spiritual practice where there's many forms of God, but ultimately God is formless and one. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not feeling inclined toward that naturally because he is, of course, one of Krishna's associates in the spiritual world, Kamala Manjari. And so he had some leaning toward Christianity in the very beginning and continued deeply seeking truth. At that time, he began to think, of course, he got married, and he began to think about needing to, have a career and so forth. And so before he became a magistrate, which he's well known for as a district magistrate, he became a school teacher. And at that time, as a school teacher, he began to read many Bengali texts and study different, Bengali religions. And so he found himself uninspired by the predominant religious activities in West Bengal. And although he was uninspired, he kept coming across this character, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he began a investigation to find the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so he was unable to find a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so eventually he was able to find one copy in Orissa, and it was in Oriyan. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur translated it and then read it and was amazed by the philosophy and the theology of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Never had he come across such a text in his study of religion. And he read it actually a few times. And after thorough studying of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he became fully convinced that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and that Krishna is the absolute truth. Because at that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a great moralist. And so being a great moralist, he was not so inclined toward Krishna. He really, really enjoyed the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he was feeling, how can this Krishna be the absolute truth? Krishna is a debauchee. He's hanging with the gopis in the middle of the night, and he's marrying so many wives. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not, he was of course aware because he's Lord Krishna's associate, but he was appearing as if a seeker and learning and becoming Krishna conscious. But after a thorough study of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he became fully convinced and understood Krishna in tattva. And this led to, this was a great conversion moment for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And at that time, he became very inspired to spread this movement and to teach Krishna consciousness in so many ways. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, even before his Vaishnava days, was an incredible writer and author. So he was writing books at that time also about morality, spirituality, but once he became fully convinced of Lord Chaitanya's position, he began to write intensely about the life and pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then about this time, he became a magistrate, a district judge from the state of West Bengal, and then later transferred to Orissa. So there he was in Jagannath Puri. And the Puri temple was considered by the English at that time as a very important cultural relic. Of course, the English did not respect the worship of Lord Jagannath, but they did understand that it was a culturally significant place. So they authorized Bhaktivinoda Thakur to bring the temple back into order, because at that time the worship of Lord Jagannath had become very degraded. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur took charge of the Jagannath temple, and he brought the standard of worship back to its former glory. And actually, there's one anecdote how there was a certain individual who was stealing money from the temple, and he was forced to pay that money back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And actually, he sponsored the offerings for Lord Jagannath for so many years. That was the way he paid it back. So, of course, in Jagannath Puri, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had his most illustrious son. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had 14 children. Many times people say 10. Actually, I believe there was 10 boys and 4 girls. So 14 children, which is amazing. And of course, his most famous and powerful child is Bimal Prasad, who later became Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the spiritual master of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, and ISKCON's Param Guru. So there's of course, the famous pastime is that during the Rath Yatra, the Lord Jagannath decided to stop, as he does, outside the home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he would not move for many, many hours. He would not move. Nothing they could do would move Lord Jagannath. So because of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's position, Bhagavati Devi, the wife of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the mother of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, came out with her child and placed her child at the feet of Lord Jagannath. And at that time, of course, the garland fell from Lord Jagannath onto Bimal Prasad, indicating that this child would be a great devotee of the Lord. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was praying very intensely to have a child who would assist him in the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement. So in that way, he was blessed, and Bhaktisiddhanta made an immense contribution to the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, in that he established and organized the Gaudiya Math and initiated and inspired our Srila Prabhupada to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So we can't, I feel just so unqualified to glorify Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One other very famous pastime that I wouldn't want to pass over is the pastime of Bhishikashen, who was the false yogi. And so at that time there was many, and still is actually, there were many false gurus, wolves in sheep's clothing, you might say. And so these false gurus were saying so many things, but this particular yogi, he had immense mystic powers, and he was somehow or another convincing all of the men of Orissa at that time to give him their wives, because he was convincing them that he was an incarnation of Vishnu. And so this is, of course, nonsense. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, being a pure devotee, would not accept such blasphemy. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur confronted him. And of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, being a great gentleman, spoke with him. And he spoke about Lord Jagannath. He said, "Why should I go see Lord Jagannath? I am Lord Jagannath. Why should I go see this piece of wood when I am Lord Jagannath? Forgive me, Lord Jagannath." So Bhaktivinoda Thakur decided at that point that he would arrest him. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur did arrest him, and he was put in jail. Because of the yogi's mystic power, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's daughter became very ill. His whole family, and actually he also became very ill by this powerful yogi's dark, black magic, black tantra. And so still Bhaktivinoda Thakur would not give up. You go tell him to be quiet. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wouldn't give up. He was very, very firmly fixed on his determination to bring down this Bhishikashen. So then when Vishikishen was brought to the court, he was there, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur continued prosecuting him. But at a certain point, they actually cut off his hair. A certain person cut off his hair, and he lost all his mystic power. And he was thrown in jail, and he committed suicide in jail. That's a very famous pastime of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And of course, one of his greatest contributions also is the discovery of the Yoga-Pīt. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his desire, his fervent desire to spread the glories of Lord Chaitanya and to establish the philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism once again, he was determined to figure out the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. At that time, in the current city of Navadvip, which is across the Ganga from the current day Mayapur, where our temple is, there was a so-called birthplace of Lord Chaitanya in modern Navadvip. But what Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered was that the modern Navadvip, which we see today, and you can go visit, which I'll be visiting very shortly, the modern Navadvip district or town today is not the Navadvip of the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That Navadvip was across the river. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, by studying old maps and doing research, he determined that this particular place, the Yoga-Pīt of today, is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. And it was covered with tulsi leaves. And so to confirm this spiritually, he brought his spiritual master, Jagannath Das Babaji, who at this time was well into his, he actually lived to 140. I don't know the age he was at this time, but he was, well over 100 and well over 100. And he was being carried in a basket. He couldn't walk. And it was so old that his skin was like covering his eyes. And so when he was brought to the Yoga-Pīt, Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought him there, he began to jump out of his basket and dance ecstatically, confirming that this was indeed the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are very important contributions that Bhaktivinoda Thakur made, and like I said, I'm truly unqualified to, give them all. We could spend weeks preparing for this class and not have really much to say. But there's a few things I wanted to speak about. Besides just that, one of them is his predictions. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, being a pure Vaishnava, was an immense mystic, and he did make predictions. One of those predictions was that soon a person that...
Chris.
The Wi-Fi is down, Prabhu.
That's okay.
Just taking the
Please put it back on if he's not going to do it, because that's not first class. Anyhow, we should, where was I at? Oh, yeah, predictions. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was an immense mystic, and he made many predictions about the Krishna conscious movement. One of those predictions that was very, of course, true was that at a certain point he had said that, actually I believe this was stated in 1896, the year Srila Prabhupada was born. He said, soon a personality will appear who will spread this Krishna consciousness all over the world. And we understand that he was speaking of Srila Prabhupada, the disciple of his child, Bimal Prasad. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote so many bhajans. I just was online looking at the bhajans of Bhaktivinoda. There's hundreds of bhajans of songs by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Like we glorify, songwriters who write mundane songs, and like in our culture, the famous songwriters like Bob Dylan and John Lennon and George Harrison and Paul McCartney. All of their songs together doesn't amount to the songs written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs were not mundane songs. They were deeply spiritual full of meaning, full of bhava, full of prema. So what a personality. I mean, the level of talent, of poetry, linguistic ability, musical ability. It's just, it really is, it's unbelievable. The only way we can believe it is when we understand that this personality was sent by Krishna, who Bhaktivinoda Thakur is an incarnation of Kamala Manjari, by his own admission in one of his bhajans. So he wrote so many pieces of music, so many poems, books, and he was very attached to Mayapur Dham. One of my favorite works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, which is a book written in glorification of Sri Dham Mayapur, Sri Navadvip Dham. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had a residence on the island of Godrumna, which is across the Jalangi River from our temple in Sri Dham Mayapur. And yeah, across the Jalangi River from our temple. Actually, my Guru Maharaj lives directly across the Jalangi from near where Bhaktivinoda Thakur lives. So across the river from our temple, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a residence there, and he spent many hours there writing and composing Vaishnava texts. And one of those texts, one of those writings, he was standing and he had a vision of a beautiful temple in Vedic city, spiritual city rising across the Jalangi River. And so we see today that there is our Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, which is the second biggest religious building in the world. And when you see it, if you've seen it, you've seen it. It is the most breathtaking piece of architecture I think I've ever seen. It's just breathtaking. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had a vision of this temple, and also in his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he speaks of Lord Nityananda predicting the Adbhut Mandir on this particular part of Navadvip, which from which the pastimes and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya will spread all over the world. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was seeing this prediction of the Krishna consciousness movement. He actually wrote once that when will Vaishnavas from Russia and Vaishnavas from India and Bengal and Vaishnavas from Europe and America all come together in Mayapur and chant Jai Sachinandana, which we see every day now in Sri Dham Mayapur. You see Vaishnavas from all over the world. If you go to Mayapur and you stay for some time, you'll make friends with people from every continent. I have a very good friend on every continent except South America, Antarctica. Every other continent, I have at least one very close friend on. So this is the potency of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of which Bhaktivinoda Thakur was carrying so deeply in his heart. So he made countless contributions of writing. I already said the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, Jaiva Dharma, very famous text of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the Harinam Chintamani, which is, I think, for anybody who wants to deepen their chanting of the holy name, is a must read. Must read the Harinam Chintamani. Very important text to help us overcome the aparads. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had so much devotion and faith in the holy name, so much immense faith in the holy name, and you can see that by reading the Harinam Chintamani. What else here? Oh, so I wanted to speak a little bit about his mood of surrender, which is to me the most inspiring element of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I'm not particularly familiar with so many of his books or so many of his pastimes, unfortunately, but I know the basics that I've heard over the years in these classes. Of course, Dhira Prabhu is much more qualified to speak on Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He gives wonderful classes every year about Bhaktivinoda. He gave a nice class on Vamana Dev yesterday. So one thing that just personally is truly inspiring to me about Bhaktivinoda Thakur is his surrender to Krishna is unparalleled. And he's an example of a personality who is in this world, but really not of this world, which is a very common saying we hear, in this world, but not of this world, by, New Age folks and those who are, practicing so-called spirituality. But the real import of that phrase is hardly realized. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the ideal grihasta. He's the ideal householder. And he shows this by his immense devotion to Krishna. Although Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so busy, I think every year we read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's schedule. I decided to skip on that this year. But we know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur only slept about 2 hours, chanted immense amounts of rounds, he wrote books, he was a district magistrate, he did so much work, he had a family, so many children, yet he was fully convinced and free from a sense gratification. He was fully convinced that this is for Krishna, and he was completely free from the idea that I'm doing this for sense gratification. He was not duplicitous in any way, shape, or form. Many times I think that, devotees, sometimes we hear that, my Guru Maharaj speaks about that. Well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was like, it's like, are you Bhaktivinoda Thakur? No. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was beyond Vaishnava. He was, beyond a regular Vaishnava. He was immensely advanced. And so his house was Vaikuntha, because everybody who came in contact with him, they were pure devotees. And he was so devoted to the holy name. And we find that, like so many times, we're trying to be in the material world and practice spirituality. Generally, we want to save some time for the material energy. That's the kind of mood, like, let me, I'm a devotee, but I still have my time set aside to enjoy, my family, to enjoy my facilities, my home. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't demonstrate that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur demonstrated full devotion to Krishna at all times. He was just fully devoted to Krishna and engaging all of his paraphernalia to Krishna in his service. And in this way, he was beyond transcendental. So it's just very inspiring to me. I thought I'd read this bhajan. This is my favorite bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I'd like to sing it, but I'm not going to sing it because someone will criticize me, and I don't want to get criticized today. So I'm just going to read it. This is one of my favorite bhajans. And we'll read the lyrics. I'll give a little purport on it. Manasa deho geho joy kichumor. It's so beautiful. So the line is, Manasa deho geho jo kichumor arpilu tuapade nanda kishore. Sampade vipade jivane marane dai mama jela tua o padabarne. Marobi rakobi jo ichitorara nitya dasa pratitua adhikara. Janmobi moy icha jaritor bhakta grihe jani janma havimor. Kita janma hao jata tuadas bahir mukha brahma janme nahi as. Mukti spriha vihina jay bhakta labate tako sangha anurakta. Janaka janini daitya tanya prabhu Guru Pati Tuhu Sarva Moy Bhaktivinoda Kohe Shunakana Radhanatha Tuha Hamara Parma. So this is beautiful. Translation. Mind, body, and family, whatever may be mine, I have surrendered at your lotus feet, O youthful son of Nanda. So this is that beautiful line. Manasa deho geho joy kichimor arpilo tuapade nanda kishore. So he's saying, my mind, my body, my family, whatever may be mine, I have surrendered to you, to your lotus feet, O youthful son of Nanda. This is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur genuinely lived this. He wasn't just speaking it or aspiring for it, he was actually living for it. And how do we follow in the footsteps of Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Vaisheshika Prabhu gives a little purport on this verse and this shloka in this song, that we can systematically think about how our mind is Krishna's. How do we give our mind to Krishna? Krishna says, Manmana bhavamad bhakto, always think of me. So we give our mind to Krishna by constantly chanting the holy name. So, and avoid giving our mind to other things. The mind is always needing to be engaged. So we engage our mind constantly in the service of Krishna, not thinking about sense gratification, not thinking about how to acquire sense gratification. Our body, what are we doing with our body? We can use our body in service. Our family, engaging a family. Whatever may be mine, I have surrendered at your lotus feet, O youthful son of Nanda. In good fortune or in bad, in life or at death, all my difficulties have disappeared by choosing those feet of yours as my only shelter. So we take shelter in so many things. One thing about Bhaktivinoda Thakur we can say is that he found himself already married. I was reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur was married at the age of 10 or 12. And so he found himself in a position where he was married, he had family, he had duties and responsibilities. And in that state, he surrendered to Krishna. He embodied the verse. Krishna says, do whatever you do, but do your prescribed duty, but do it as an offering to me. In the 8th chapter, he imbibed that verse. He didn't go out and seek sense gratification or try to change his position. He was simply found in his position. He surrendered where he was. He wasn't trying to arrange a position where I can surrender better here or this or that. That's Maya. He simply, in his own position, he surrendered everything, and he gave that to Krishna. Because otherwise, we're always going to be thinking about how to change the position, make the position right, correct? But this is, I need to have this, and then I have this, and then I do that. Or Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sings that in one of his poems in English. Let me live in my life right now, let me surrender. We can surrender right now. It just means at this very moment, let me give everything to Krishna. Let me stop making plans for myself and give everything to Krishna. So then he says, slay me or protect me as you wish, for you are the master of your eternal servant. So this is a symptom of surrender. I'm yours, Krishna. Do with me what you will. I'm not going to bulge from my service or my devotion to your lotus feet for 1 second. It's a powerful consciousness to adopt, that you do with me what you will. We're going to make so many mistakes. It's nice because we make so many mistakes in the due course of our services. And whatever mistakes we make, we don't try to justify them. We just say, Krishna, do with me what you will. You're my only shelter. May I be born again, even as a worm, so as long as I remain your devotee. I have no desire to be born as a Brahma, averse to you. One of those statements that we say, but I don't know if we always imbibe. Because here's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's praying to be a worm and be a devotee. But we're thinking, maybe I'll be a gopi in the spiritual world, maybe I'll be a cowherd boy. We're thinking like that. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is thinking, let me be a worm in the house of a devotee. I don't want any material position if I can't fully devote myself to you. And similarly, Krishna claims a certain person is his best devotee in Dwarka. Uddhava. Krishna says that, Uddhava, you're more dear to me than Lord Balaram, you're more dear to me than Lakshmi Devi, you're more dear to me than even my own self. Yet what does Uddhava pray for? Let me become a blade of grass in Vrindavan. So what we think, yes, I'd like to do. So, very powerful statement. I yearn for the company of that devotee who is completely devoid of all desire for worldly enjoyment or liberation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is yearning for the company of a pure devotee. We should also yearn for the company of a pure devotee. We can always be in the company of a pure devotee by reading Prabhupada's books. Father, mother, lover, son, lord, preceptor, and husband, you are everything to me. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is expressing that you're my Krishna, you're my father, Krishna, you're my mother, Krishna, you're my lover, you're my son, you're my lord, my preceptor, and husband. You are my everything. This is the consciousness of full surrender to God. I don't need anything else because you're my everything, Krishna. Thakur Bhaktivinoda says, O Kana, please hear me. O Lord of Radha, you are my life and soul. That's very beautiful. Song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, demonstrating his depth of surrender. And that's just amazing because it's like, yeah, he wrote one amazing song like that, but he wrote thousands of songs with this level of surrender and depth. And it goes to show you the consciousness of such a great Vaishnava saint. So we pray to Bhaktivinoda Thakur to help us surrender in our position and to give us mercy and to help us in our path, in our progressive service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's very inspiring. When I go to Mayapur, my favorite place in the Holy Dham is his Samadhi, where you can see where him and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and Gaurkishore Das Babaji used to associate. Many of these songs were written there. So thank you all very much. Please forgive my offenses. Please forgive my lack of genuine devotion and knowledge of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Are there any comments, questions, realizations? Lalita Priya. Yes, I mentioned that before you came.
A lot of work to do. Also, 64 rounds Japa, managing our logistic position, writing many books. Many books he writes. We open many centers in the Namhata.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. I have that written here. The Namhata, yeah.
He had many children. Then 10, 12.
14 children.
Yeah. He tried to state the children to become our town of sitting area to make open the Namhata center. But he was sending to preaching. But they are not that much high level, not that much Bhagwan devotee. He has been austerity very much the whole day without eating nothing, both husband while chanting very nicely all day. I want to desire, I want powerful son. Came to Bhakti Siddhanta, last son of Bhakti Siddhanta. Last son. He becomes pure devotee. Bhakti Siddhanta. No. Finally, one son came very strong. He can do preach all over God.
Yeah.
Everyone.
There's no personality like Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
He is very much. I saw his house in Jagannath Puri, near the Jagannath Puri temple. Beautiful beauty, big beauty, Lord Jagannath Puri, his house. And Ras come to from Puri temple to near his house. Yeah. And every time we watching the Rath Yatra, they are tied to time. He not change the garden to his the special. Anybody who go to India, Mayapur, he especially in Jagannath Puri, but he like to stay in Mayapur now.
He loved Mayapur Dham.
Yeah,
Bhaktivinoda Thakur loved Mayapur.
That's very nice.
You had a question, Lalita?
No, I just had a comment, and I know you mentioned it, but I mean, I think you said this is what really personally impresses you about him, and also myself, is just, everything that he did, well, like you said, maintaining all those children, right? Maintaining his family, working the job as a magistrate, doing all this and then still being fully dedicated, and because sometimes, you might think, oh, I don't have time to do this or that, right? I don't have time to do this or that. Well, I think maybe that might not be true, because we find time to do so many other
Bhaktivinoda Thakur was busier than every single person, and he did more devotional service than everybody.
He was even busier than Mother Sindhamani.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, he was amazing. That's a symptom of a very advanced devotee, is they don't waste time. You don't waste time, Minimize sleep the best you can. We can't imitate Prabhupada or Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but we can follow in the footsteps. It's an important point to understand that. We can't imitate, but we can follow. And by following, you become the best version of yourself. You don't become Prabhupada. You don't become Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Or I like to very inspired by Bhakti Tirtha Swami. You don't become them, but by their inspiration and by the genuine desire to go the extra mile, we find ourselves doing things we didn't think possible for us. Like, I'm not, on any high level, but at least by Krishna's grace and by the grace of the great acharyas, we can actually do more because we want to. And so following the footsteps means that we might not be able to eat a chapati and a glass of milk a day like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but at least we can take only prasadam.
Yeah.
Something,
Yeah, I like to think of it like, if I'm feeling like, oh, I don't have time to do this, or I'm feeling lazy, then to think, well, if Bhaktivinoda Thakur can find the time to do all those things, I can find the time to do this one small thing.
At least we can do is read Prabhupada's books,
Yeah.
So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki,
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.